Here we are in Krabi and we've hit the deck running. We're getting straight to work with some carpentry on board, looking to build our Dodger. We've got rigging, we've got loads of things to do. And I have two very special guests with me. I think if anyone's watched our refit videos, they will recognise these two faces, one of whom is walking right next to me. It's Tui.
Oh.
These are the two carpenters who pretty much rebuilt the interior of Esper. And it turns out that they are looking for work. And they're based in Krabi. They moved up to Krabi with their families. They've just finished a job. They're looking for more work. Here we are. So you should all recognise this man here. Ton, what are we doing now? We are nipping into town first to pick up a couple of things. The first is some PVC. Ton and Tui have agreed to help with building our Dodger, and we've been consulting with a guy that's based in the marina who recommended getting some PVC locally, and we're just going to use that to build a template. So it allows us, it's very flexible, just allows us to play around with the shape of what will be our Dodger eventually. So we're going to pick that up. Then we're going to pick up some marine ply, because our cockpit floor has sort of caved in from underneath. So Ton this morning has stripped the old marine ply away, and we've got to replace that. And we're picking up a little bit of teak just to do some work on the toilet floor. So we are now driving into Krabi in Ton's lovely pickup and see if we can source some of those materials. Here we are at the wood warehouse, and it's a pretty big warehouse actually. Got a lot of stuff here, so we need to see if we can find our marine ply and teak. Okay, what we're going to do here is we're going to use this very thin ply, which is super thin. Cost about 250 baht. We'll get two of those, which should give us enough to do the whole of the roof. And then we'll pick up some of that cheap PVC pipe that you see everywhere to build the framework. This place does have everything. It's got honeycomb, so that is what we're going to be building the actual roof from eventually when we get round to it. And if you've been watching our refit videos, you'll know that quite a bit of our boat was built with honeycomb on deck. So that was one sheet of 10mm marine ply. I have to say they have actually got marine ply, which is great. And then we've got another 2 sheets of very thin ply, which we're going to use to build the template. So we're at woodwork shop number 2. We just had to come here for some teak. And they had the PVC pipes as well, which we're going to use to build our template. So they are now going to town here and making sure everything is secured on the back of Ton's pickup. Ton, you're paying? You're paying, yeah? Tui, what are we doing here? The name?
Pen.
Pen?
Yep.
Pen.
Thailand.
We've got Ton and Tui a pen, which is a little gazebo, because they don't have anywhere to work, and Tom was complaining about it being very hot this morning, so we thought we'd treat him to a little tent. Okay, let's go. Come on, cab. Here we are at Camp Ton Tui. This is where they're working. Here's the little gazebo. We got them yesterday. Gives them a bit of protection from the bright sunlight. Not much, but it's better than nothing. This is the cockpit floor that Ton has been working on. Looks like he's actually cleaned up the top side as well as the underneath. Essentially what was happening was the lower 10mm ply had rotten away, and the teak on top is still in very good nick. So he scraped away the old ply and he's put on a brand new sheet, which we bought yesterday from the timber yard. And that is marine ply as well, so I was quite happy that we were able to get hold of that. And essentially used, it was Sikaflex 298, which I've not used before. Came in a big sausage, and he's applied a primer to it as well before using the 298 to adhere, obviously, the teak planks to the underside. And then of course his last job would be to route out these gaps here. We had a quick look at the other. We've got two of these in the cockpit. We had a look at the other one this morning and it's also in a bad way, so he's going to be working on that one as well. Tui, meanwhile, has been filling in, or is going to be filling in, the gaps here, which is the floor for our heads, which we currently have covered. But when we go into colder climates, we'll be using the lower heads, the heads for showering. So we need to expose this again. There's just one problem. During the night, when Millie needs the loo and there's no one around to flush away her wee, she tends to poo on the floor. So with obviously these gaps in the way, it's going to fall through onto the sloping floor underneath, which won't be very nice. So Tui is going to fill in from there to there, because it's this end that Millie likes to poo. There we go, we think of everything aboard Esper. There we go, proud worker finished. So Tom, can you tell us a bit about what you've done then? Great, that's interesting. Yeah, good man, excellent, good work. It's looking like new, this. Meanwhile, Tui is f***ing everything up. How's it going, Tui?
Yep.
Yep. Okay, here we are, hot afternoon. Tom's just returned with the rather splendidly looking cockpit floor, which I'll show you in a second. What we're trying to do now is to work out some kind of template for the new Dodger. So we've got the PVC pipes, which we're trying to line up in a kind of rough angle at which the struts are going to sit. We've got these two boards of ply, very thin ply, which I had originally intended to use as the roof, but I think it's going to make more sense to actually build something around the coaming of the front as the boys are stretching this now. So I might actually get them to cut that first, and then that will give us an idea of the actual shape that it follows as it goes around the coaming. And so there's the new cockpit floor. Now, if you can't see any difference, it's difficult for me to tell in this light, but let's compare that to that.
So before we go on, just to let you know, we're going to talk about the project generally at the end of the video. But right now, we just wanted to discuss a little bit about where we're going with the design.
Yeah, design is interesting. We've spent hours and hours researching the internet on different designs. There's some good Dodger designs out there and there's some pretty bloody awful ones as well. So obviously we wanted it to look good, but the main focus is on it being functional. We hit the jackpot when we were in Pancor and we came across not one, not two, but three lightwave catamarans. Now this is an Australian make of catamaran. They're very nice cats. All three of them had this rather smart small Dodger roof area at the helm station, and obviously on a catamaran the helm station is slightly raised. It's only big enough to house the pilot with a little seat, but that particular design kind of ticked all the boxes for us.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, I mean, we were looking for inspiration from everywhere, so a catamaran, who'd have thought it? But it was just a really nice shape and we thought it could work.
It could work. I mean, obviously we'd have to make it bigger. So one of these light waves also used strata glass, which is a flexible plastic glass. It's thicker than your normal canvas plastic that you'd use in a spray hood or a Dodger, but that was one thing that we were looking at. So that was the basis for our design. One of the other things we wanted to include was to put in some stainless. You'll hear us talking about the stainless, not just the struts that the Dodger sits on, but also a U-frame. So we're actually integrating, I think it's 4mm stainless U-shape within the structure itself, just to provide a bit of rigidity.
So some of the things we have to think about is we're trying to get it as high as we can, but of course we've got a boom coming right across the cockpit here from our main mast, so we are limited on maximum space, but we want to really try and maximise that. We've also got the main sheet that runs off the back of the boom, just above our helming position, so that dictates how far back we can take it. And then the other problem we have to look at is it can only really be the same size and shape as the cockpit, and the forward part of the cockpit goes into quite a narrow curve, doesn't it? So those three things were foremost in our mind when we were coming up with the ever-changing design.
Exactly, and that is why you'll see over the process of designing this Dodger, it becomes rather organic. You'll see we're chopping and changing, going backwards and forwards. So you can see here that Ton and Tui have been putting together the template. It's gone back a couple of times, a bit of toing and froing, just trying to get the shape right before we start working on what's happening around the front, and also of course the roof. And the skipper has come to inspect. Day 2 of template design, and there was just something about that template we knocked up yesterday which I didn't like. It was like an egg. Yom. What's egg? Kai. I was trying to explain to these guys, I was doing chicken impressions, explaining that the whole overall effect of our original design was like an egg. One of the problems that we've got is that we have a very short roof space, so it's only from there to there really that the struts are going to lie. And with all the curves that we'd put in, it just looked odd. So we have now resorted to the PVC pipe and gone for a different design based roughly, I don't know if you can see it, on that little speedboat down there. It's our 5th day of working in the marina. Ton and Tui have done a bit of carpentry work around the boat, but for the last 3 days we've been designing the Dodger, which is that. And we've gone backwards and forwards as I expected we would. Ton and Tui spent quite a bit of time creating this rather beautiful template, but we decided that, or I decided that it just looked a bit egg-like. It didn't really suit the lines of Esper's cockpit. So we ripped it all down and we've started again. I think Ton was a little bit offended by it because he'd spent so long creating this marvellous template, but yeah, so we've gone for a slightly different design, a little bit simpler. So today, hopefully, they are going to be designing the roof, and that's what I really want them to get on with, because the roof is the thing that's going to take the most amount of time. That's obviously going to require quite a bit of fiberglassing over honeycomb, epoxying, and eventually fairing and smoothing down. So I'm hoping that they can begin on that today. So let's see what happens. Ton, what are we doing now? So we just spent 8,000 baht on materials, which equates to, with the current exchange rate, which isn't good for us in the UK, it's close to £200. But that is over 30 metres of fiberglass and 4 sheets of 10mm honeycomb, plus brushes and some acetone. But we've still got to buy the epoxy, and that's going to be a little bit pricey as well, I think. But we have the essentials, so at least it means that this afternoon when we get the stainless steel measured up, the boys aren't waiting around not doing anything. They can at least start to lay up the fiberglass on that honeycomb. Meanwhile, back at Ton and Tui's workshop, which Tui's decided is called Ton and Tui Marine. He started off with Ton and Tui Shop. He's decided now it's Ton and Tui Marine. So I think we'll make a little sign for them under their lovely gazebo. We've just had Lek and Wheat on board, who were two stainless guys that worked in Satoon who we knew, and their work is phenomenal. They worked on a boat whilst we were down there and made pretty much everything that you saw on that boat from scratch. They are master craftsmen and they are now based here, which is great. So had them on board, so they know Ton and Tui, they've all worked together before, which just makes things so much easier. On top of that, Lex speaks very good English. It's perfect English, so at least he's able to understand exactly what it is we're after. So he has to order in the stainless. We're going for stainless sheets as the U bars. They'll probably come in either tomorrow or Monday. Meanwhile, he's going to measure up and start making the feet, which are going to contain those U bars. Ton and Tui at least can get on with starting to work on the ceiling, the roof, I should say. So Ton is now just getting the honeycomb out now, and what I've asked him to do is to actually fit them together like a jigsaw, so to make a routed groove in the end like a jigsaw, so that they can slot it together just to give it a little bit more strength when you put two pieces of honeycomb together. So at least it means that they are still working, which is good, because what I don't want to do is to have to tell them to go off for a week and then come back again, because you never know, I might lose them. So it's all good.
So we've got Ton and Tui locked in making the roof, and they're putting the two panels together to make the final roof. And the reason for doing that first is that we need to get it back onto the boat and put it in the cockpit in roughly the right area, well, in the right area, so that then we can decide where we want the struts. And at this stage we still weren't quite sure whether we wanted one at the back, one at the front as well, and which angles we wanted to put them, because there were so many options on the table, weren't there?
Well, there were lots of options on the table on paper, but in real life, of course, there were only a few that were actually going to work. So as you say, getting that roof back in situ was important, because we've got Lek and Wit, the stainless guys, on standby, ready to measure up exactly where that vertical, horizontal, vertical U-shaped integrated stainless strut is going to go. So that's why Ton and Tui cracked on with getting that roof, the initial part of the roof, sorted.
Okay.
So, but as you can see, this is, we said earlier, it's all very organic, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's sort of backwards and forwards, which we were kind of expecting. Unfortunately, that will add to the cost, because we are paying time for Ton and Tui.
Yep.
And obviously if we make mistakes and we have to go back a stage, then we have to, you know, pay for the time spent doing that.
And that's 1,200 baht a day each.
Yes, which
for their time.
equates to, what's that, about 30 quid, isn't it? I think £30 approximately. So yeah, anyway, well that was, I think, not bad progress for the first week, to be honest.
It's really good.
I think we've done all right. We've kind of lost half a day by going back and changing the design, but you know, we're getting there, and I have complete faith in both Ton and Tui and also in Lek's stainless work, which hopefully we'll see more of next week.
Yeah, so there's nobody really project managing this but us, just us chickens doing this particular job, so it is a bit of a learning curve.
Yeah, and I think we should also mention that, okay, two things. First of all, some people are asking why a hard dodger.
Yeah.
The one thing that we wanted to do with this design was to actually make it removable. So in an emergency where we might have to get access to the engine, we want to be able to lift this off. So we didn't want to completely integrate it into the coaming. So the idea is that, you know, by unbolting it, we can lift the thing and move it out the way. And maybe when we go back to the tropics after our spell in the cold climate, we may want to remove it for that reason as well. So that was one thing. It's a removable hard dodger. And the other thing was that I have forgotten what I was going to say.
No, we were going to put a solar panel on, wasn't it? That's why we wanted a hard dodger.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, that's the idea. Still the idea.
Thanks for reminding me, I'd forgotten that.
Yeah, I mean, that was what we talked about all along, and we kept coming back, canvas hard, because they both do the job. But we want to put one big solar panel on top, and really we just felt that the hard dodger would be easier, wouldn't it?
Yes. Of course, there are question marks over that as well. Should you put a solar panel in the centre of the boat where you've got lots of shadow? We do know of a boat, it's a sloop, not a ketch, who have mounted 3 large solar panels on their much bigger Dodger, and they say it works very well for them. But yeah, that's still kind of up in the air at the moment, isn't it?
And it gives us that opportunity if we want to, doesn't it? But
Yeah.
if we don't put it on there, then we can put other things up there.
Yeah, and I think the other thing to emphasise is that, you know, in the tropics, in the southwest monsoon when it's wet, this canvas construction we have at the moment doesn't really hold up very well. It leaks here and there, and we get drips in the wrong places. So having this hard Dodger, which eventually is going to be hopefully it's going to overhang over the sides of the coaming, so it's actually going to be going further out than our current setup. So yeah, anyway, let's see what happens next time. But in the meantime, if you enjoyed the video, please do share it. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already subscribed.
So, in the meantime, peace and fair winds.